Mary Kirk's tribute and biography. When I think of Charlie, I don't think first of the political rallies or the headlines. I think of my older brother, the one who teased me when we were kids, the one who carried a confidence that lit up every room he entered, and the one who believed, no matter what, that he could change the world. He was more than the public figure so many people knew. To me, he was family, and that bond is something no tragedy can erase. Growing up together in suburban Chicago, Charlie always had this energy about him. He knew early on what he wanted, and chased it with a kind of determination that amazed everyone around him. While I chose a quieter path, diving into books, art, and the world of culture, he stood boldly in the arena of politics. Our lives took different directions, but they always led back to the same home, the same parents, and the same sense of being bound together as siblings. We didn't always agree on politics. Anyone who knew us could see that. He fought for his beliefs with passion, and I sought to express mine through history and art. But disagreements never erased respect. Behind the debates, and beyond the different perspectives, was always love. Charlie never stopped being my big brother, and I never stopped admiring his courage to stand firmly for what he believed in, even when it brought challenges or criticism. Losing him so suddenly has left a silence that words can barely describe. The world knew Charlie for his voice, his boldness, and his leadership. I knew him for his laughter at the dinner table, his ability to make any situation into a story, and his fierce loyalty to the people he loved. He believed in ideas larger than himself, but he also cared deeply for his family. Rest easy, brother. Mary Kirk's life has always unfolded in the shadow of her older brother's fame, yet her story is not one of imitation, but of quiet individuality. She is the younger sister of Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist who founded Turning Point USA, and whose tragic death on September 10, 2025, shocked the political world. While Charlie's name was often on television screens and social media feeds, Mary's rarely appeared. She built her life in Chicago, carving a path grounded in art, culture, and education. Now, with her brother's passing, interest in her journey has grown, revealing the portrait of a woman who pursued a markedly different vision of the world than her brother, all while preserving a sense of family and dignity. Mary was born into a family where curiosity and open-mindedness mattered more than rigid politics. Her father, Robert, worked as an architect, building structures with an eye for detail and form. Her mother, Catherine, devoted herself to mental health counseling, guiding people through life's challenges with compassion. Together, they created a home in suburban Chicago that encouraged both their children to think critically, to ask questions, and to discover their own passions. Politics was not forced on them. It was simply one of many topics discussed, leaving both Charlie and Mary the freedom to find their own voices. Charlie, born in 1993, was the first to chart his course. By his teenage years, he was already deeply involved in conservative politics, a drive that only grew with time. Mary, the younger of the two, showed an early interest in politics as well, though in a quieter way. In high school, she joined the Wheeling Young Republicans, testing out the same political waters that fascinated her brother. But where Charlie found a calling, Mary would eventually find herself moving in another direction entirely. Her love of history and art gradually took root. After graduating from high school, she pursued a degree at the University of Illinois at Chicago, where she studied art history, criticism, and conservation. In 2019, she graduated, eager to immerse herself in the world of galleries, museums, and cultural preservation. Unlike her brother, who built a career in front of cameras, microphones, and political rallies, Mary chose the hushed corridors of museums, the creative energy of galleries, and the painstaking work of conservation. She became a gallery assistant, later launching her own art consulting business, sometimes referred to as Kirk Art Services. Chicago became both her professional hub and her personal home. Her career path reflected not just a profession, but a philosophy. Mary saw art as more than objects on a wall. It was a way to tell stories, to preserve memory, and to educate communities. In her view, cultural institutions were not luxuries. They were essential spaces where people could grapple with history, identity, and justice. While Charlie stirred debates about the direction of America, Mary used her voice to champion cultural preservation and education. Over time, her political outlook began to shift in a direction very different from her early teenage affiliations. Around 2015 and 2016, as Senator Bernie Sanders energized a new generation of progressives, Mary felt herself drawn toward his vision. She began supporting progressive causes, encouraging voter participation in Democratic primaries, and posting online about issues of racial justice, educational access, and the importance of preserving historical memory. One of her most passionate causes was the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana, a site dedicated to telling the history of slavery in America. She urged others to support its mission and spoke out about the need to fund institutions such as the Institute of Museum and Library Services. These stances, rooted in cultural memory and historical truth, showed how her interests in art and history merged seamlessly with her political views. Unlike her brother's combative approach, Mary's activism unfolded in quiet appeals, thoughtful messages, and a commitment to preserving the past for the sake of a more honest future. The contrast between siblings could not have been sharper. Charlie built a movement centered on conservative values, free markets, and opposition to progressive policies. Mary, meanwhile, used her voice to support progressive causes and align with left-leaning movements. And yet, despite these differences, the family did not fracture. Reports suggest Mary and Charlie did not engage in public fights over politics. Instead, they lived their lives in parallel, each secure in their convictions. The Kirk family, by all accounts, respected this diversity of thought, allowing their children to remain close even as their beliefs diverged. For much of her 20s, Mary deliberately avoided the limelight. She often used aliases on social media, maintaining a barrier between her private world and the wider public. She did not court attention, and very little about her day-to-day life became part of the public record. But when tragedy struck in September 2025 and Charlie was assassinated, the protective wall around her life cracked. Suddenly, media outlets were asking about her, about the sister who seemed so different from the man whose name was headline news. Stories described her as Charlie Kirk's sister with contrasting views, or even the secret sister. Her preference for privacy was interpreted by some as distance, but those who knew her recognized it as simply the way she had always lived. Observers noted that Mary did not take the stage at Turning Point USA memorials or issue sweeping public statements about her brother's death. Instead, she mourned privately. For her, grief was not something to be broadcast, but something to be carried within family circles. Her silence should not be mistaken for estrangement. It was a reflection of her character. Reserved, thoughtful, and reluctant to turn personal pain into public spectacle, Mary's approach to loss was consistent with the way she had always handled life. Public accounts of Mary suggest a woman who values independence and intellectual integrity. Choosing a path so different from her brother's took courage. She did not seek to define herself by comparison to Charlie, but by following her own passions. Her focus on art and cultural advocacy reveals a deep respect for history, memory, and education. Media outlets sometimes describe her political views as surprising, but the real surprise lies in the way she blended personal conviction with a quiet strength, refusing to let her brother's fame overshadow her identity. Still, much about Mary remains unknown. Her childhood has only been referenced in passing, and her personal reflections on Charlie's death have not been shared publicly. It is unclear whether her activism will expand beyond social media and cultural advocacy into more organized public efforts. For now, her career remains centered on the art world, and her long-term goals are modest and private. What can be said with confidence is that Mary Kirk represents a different kind of story within a high-profile family. While her brother lived in the glare of cameras, she built a quieter life rooted in the enduring value of art, history, and progressive ideals. Their differences were stark, but they coexisted within the same family, proving that shared roots can give rise to divergent branches. Mary's story is one of quiet resilience. She demonstrates that influence does not always come from microphones and rallies. It can also come from preserving history, advocating for culture, and choosing to live authentically. In a moment when her brother's death has thrust her into public view, Mary remains true to herself, private, thoughtful, and quietly committed to shaping the world through education and art. And with that, thanks for watching. Give us a like, share with friends, and please subscribe.